It's a contradiction. They're not saying the same thing. One of them is telling the truth, one of them is not.
Discrepancies, conflicting accounts. This is now part of the Nolan Wells investigation. You're going to hear people ask whether someone is lying, which is very fair given the reporting. It's time to review the questions and the contradictions related to the case of Nolan Wells' death. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I think it's time to list out all the apparent contradictions, the unanswered questions in the Nolan Wells death investigation, the discrepancies that we're seeing. I just wanted to condense it all so you have it all here to make sense of it. Is someone lying? Is anyone lying? Who would be lying? What's not adding up? Now, we're not going to make accusations that people aren't telling the truth, but what we're going to try to do here is show you the difference of opinion, the different narratives, the contradictions, the apparent contradictions. Now, we're talking, of course, about Nolan Wells, the 18-year-old Southwest Mississippi Community College football player, graduate of Ocean Springs High, who disappeared while boating with friends on Horn Island, right off the coast of Mississippi during the July 4th weekend. Access to that island is limited to boats. It's a wilderness area. There's no commercial development. That's a very specific area. Now, he reportedly didn't return with his group of friends on their boat that day. His family reported him missing the night of July 4th after receiving a phone call at around 11 p.m. from one of his friends. So again, the report came in, late July 4th, early July 5th. His body was found on the island that Monday, July 6th, washed ashore. His family is demanding transparency. They are demanding a full investigation, a thorough investigation into what happened. And as you know, if you've been following our coverage here, you know that they have retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump. So let's get into the discrepancies. Let's get into the contradictions. One of the biggest contradictions right now is, what was Nolan doing? What were Nolan's movements that day? So Ben Crump held a press conference that the boys on the boat had claimed that Nolan went to Horn Island and decided to talk to a girl. Even one of the boys' mothers, Ashley Cole, according to WLOX, confirmed that her son said that. Her son was apparently with all them that day. And also confirmed that the boys had taken off because of boat trouble, which we're going to talk about, and that seems to be true. I'm going to explain that in a minute. But the Jackson County Sheriff's Office said that it believes Nolan stayed on the island. ABC News is reporting that one of Nolan's purported friends, Tracestin Shepherd, claims Nolan wanted to stay back to talk to a girl and that he would come back on another friend's boat. Shepherd saying they met that day, and it's kind of one of those things. He did come off that day, that he really did like her, but that was the only time they ever hung out. Now, what is in dispute is whether Nolan actually did that. So that's one perspective, right? That's one narrative. But according to Ben Crump, this girl allegedly said that Nolan told her he was going back to the boat, as Crump said in the presser.
They're not saying the same thing. One of them is telling the truth, one of them is not. We have to get to the bottom of that.
According to People, Nolan's mother, Christine Wonsley, spoke to this young lady as well. Christine said in an interview with the Griot, she did reach out to me initially, just saying basically like it was a hey and bye type situation. That interview, by the way, was published July 14th. ABC News claims that they tried to contact this young woman, that authorities have announced they've been interviewing anyone Wells came into contact with that day, so presumably they spoke to her, right? Look, we don't know her identity. We haven't heard from her publicly, but you're seeing this apparent contradiction about what Nolan maybe did. And by the way, we haven't really heard from anyone else on the boat or on the island that day publicly, which adds to the confusion. Everyone is tight-lipped. All right, real quick, not to take away from this, but we have this really, really cool sponsor that supports what we do. And I got to say, like, nothing ruins a great outfit faster than a broken, worn-out belt. But Anson Belt and Buckle, they are here to save the day. Anson is a family-run company that has completely reinvented how belts should work since they launched in 2009. Can you look at this right now? Navy belt. Where do you get a navy leather belt like this? So instead of holes, Anson uses a micro-adjustable track system with quarter-inch increments so your belt fits perfectly and adjusts with you throughout the entire day. So whether you're sitting, you're standing, maybe you're on the move, you're going to look great, you're going to feel great, you're going to look sharp. This belt is awesome. It's stylish. And by the way, since every strap and buckle are interchangeable, you're always going to have a belt that perfectly matches your outfit. They also have over 40 100,000 five-star reviews. They offer a lifetime guarantee. So since Anson is today's sponsor, click the link in the description or scan the QR code to build a box set with 2 bonus pieces, a buckle and a strap, completely free. That's 3 buckles and 3 straps, which can be mixed, matched into 9 unique belt combinations all in one box. So click the link, build your set, and upgrade your belt game today. Oh, and by the way, the boat having problems? Interesting. We don't necessarily see a discrepancy in that, particularly after the new reporting about audio dispatch. So NBC News has obtained audio of what seems to be Nolan's friends calling for help when their boat was in trouble. Listen to this.
We're sinking. Can you all please come?
And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's on board.
Yeah, so based on that brief report and accounts from NBC News and the New York Post, it appears that boat likely had 7 people on board. The boat was having trouble at around 4 p.m. The boat operator reportedly said, hey, we're at the west tip of Horn and our bilge pump stopped working. I want to get this boat unsank and towed back. So the boat was reportedly towed for 3 miles, picked up speed less than an hour later. But look, that still raises a question, right? It raises a question about Nolan's whereabouts. It also creates a discrepancy in the timeline. Everybody on board? Was Nolan on board? Probably not based on the timeline, though maybe saying everybody on board is just saying, yeah, everybody's on board. I'm not saying, Nolan was there or Nolan wasn't there. If he wasn't there, I'm just saying everybody who was there was on board. Now, CBS News also obtained GPS data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources that tracked the boat's movements. This is big too, because this is information they say they obtained via records request. And according to the reporting, the vessel apparently left the dock at approximately 9:56 that morning, arrived at Horn Island at 11:14. According to GPS data, the boat left Horn Island at 4:31 that afternoon, returned to its original departure dock. It then traveled into Fort Bayou at around 5:52 before returning to the dock at 6:06. Later that evening, the boat went to the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:19, traveled overland, which would suggest it was towed by a vehicle to the owner's residence. So to put that into perspective and why it matters, Ben Crump claims Nolan was last seen on the island at 3 p.m. Again, according to Ashley Cole, the mother, her son, right? She's a local judge, by the way. She says her son claims he last saw Nolan at around 3 p.m. on the island, and her son left at 4:30 p.m. Now, we haven't seen necessarily a discrepancy in terms of when Nolan was last seen, but this is something to keep in mind, right? This is one of those outstanding questions. And the DMR report that was obtained by CBS News indicated that the boat's owner, his mother, and another person who was with Nolan, they are cooperating with the investigation. We will see if the timeline shifts, but this is one of the questions, again, about Nolan's movements. Now, the biggest discrepancy here is Nolan's family says this is not like Nolan. It is unlike him to stay behind and leave his group of friends. His father, Elmore Wonsley, said to GMA, Good Morning America, we always taught him that if you go with a group, you stay with a group. If you go with 5, you come back with 5. Do not separate from the group because I always said safety is in numbers. So he knew to stay with this group. So why would he split from the group? I don't know. When they said that, it turned me off, but it raised a question. I know he wouldn't do that. I preach that to him every day. You're lying to me. Now, there's also been quite a big back and forth about whether he ever made it back to the boat, back to the mainland, because it centers around this photo of a party, a photo that seemingly, arguably, shows Nolan at this pool party early in the morning of July 5th. So in other words, if you believe that, the idea would be he left the boat, made it to the mainland, went to this party, died somehow, brought back to Horn Island afterwards, and then found dead and washed ashore. I mean, that would be presumably what happened, right? The problem is, look, Ben Crump even apparently shared this photo, again, of what people believe to be Nolan at this party. And according to the New York Post, Crump posted this photo to social media. And this was a post that was circulated by Crump. This was from an account called Chanel Tarot TV. The streets are talking. Now listen, I don't know if these are facts or rumors because no official statements have been confirmed. We sometimes have to follow all clues until the truth is found. Here's what was discovered on social media last night. Social media allegations claim a photo exists of Nolan at a land-based pool party in Jackson County before 1 a.m. on July 5th. But the discrepancy, the contradiction, Shepherd, right, who I mentioned before, Nolan's purported friend, said that that photo wasn't from July 5th. It wasn't from that weekend. It was actually from a party on June 27th in Pass Christian, Mississippi. Rolling Stone reported that that photo was taken at 11:58 p.m. that night in June, with the outlet confirming that another person provided them with metadata for that photo and other photos from that night. So Ben Crump was asked about this, right? Ben Crump was asked about that development at a press conference this week, kind of went on the defensive. He said, I didn't share the photo, I just reposted it.
We're reposting everything. Let's make it clear. We're reposting everything because we're trying to get people to come in and call. And so we've said from the beginning, we're in a ferocious search for the truth. And so things out there, we are trying to post, ask people, do you know something about this? Let us know. Just because we repost does not mean that we authenticate anything.
There's been a lot of discrepancies and contradictions and different narratives about whether a fight or altercation took place too. So Ben Crump mentioned that there is a video circulating on social media on or near Horn Island in which he seemed to claim that Nolan might be heard, that he might be heard saying, quote, give me my freaking phone, what are you freaking doing? During a press conference, when he was asked, look, how do you know that that's Nolan's voice? Crump reportedly said that multiple people identified it as Nolan's. But according to ABC News, Nolan's friend, Mr. Shepherd, claims that there was no altercation, that Nolan wasn't involved. Shepherd even says Nolan isn't in the video. He said, quote, that's me yelling. There was no talk about a phone in that video. Nolan wasn't on the island. Shepherd says that this was a fight with a stranger. Shepherd told Rolling Stone, those were not Nolan's words, they were mine. I get that everybody wants justice for Nolan. Everybody wants to know exactly what happened. Now, Crump was asked about that this week at another presser, and he said, that's what a witness told us, and that's what we put out. And then another witness has come forward and said, no, that was his voice. We have other witnesses who said there were other altercations. We're trying to go through it all. We have audio people doing it, but we know certain people said it was him, and there are certain people who say it was not him. By the way, there is also no clear consensus on Nolan's phone either. Ben Crump said at a press conference last week, quote, what teenager would leave their phone behind if they're going to stay on this island? What teenager wouldn't take their phone? It's not adding up at all. And he reportedly also highlighted that the family seemingly believes data, messages on that phone, on Nolan's phone, may have been deleted. And we believe that the family actually recovered his phone from Nolan's friends using the Life 360 app. But Nolan's friend, again, Mr. Shepherd, told ABC it's not unusual for people to leave their phones in boats. Shepherd's uncle, who was apparently driving one of the boats that day, confirmed that. Shepherd said, quote, all our friends are out there. Who are we communicating with? And we're in saltwater. We're not in freshwater. When Nolan got in the water, he put his phone on the boat dash along with probably 15 other phones. And this is another update, by the way, as we try to get to the truth about the phone. We have learned from Ben Crump that Nolan's phone will undergo a mutual inspection by both state investigators and the family's own experts. So that could be a game changer. That could be very interesting. It's different to see that, right? A mutual inspection. I spoke to attorney Tyler Bailey about this. Take a look.
It's highly unusual that a victim's family, along with their attorney, would be allowed to participate with law enforcement in the inspection of a cell phone data that is really the crux, one of the crucial pieces of evidence with this case. I don't think that would have happened without a lot of the chatter going on around the country about how this investigation has transpired, and it shows there's some distrust between the family and law enforcement here. So there should be some forensic experts regarding data extraction present with the state, and also there will likely be an independent one that Mr. Crump's office has present with the DA at the same time. So that way, everybody can see it at the same time, whether all data is being extracted, make sure nothing's being left behind, because the big issue here is that the early announcement of no foul play, the evidence of the cell phone that the family received, I believe, a couple of days after Nolan went missing, or the night of, I can't recall the exact time, and then the missing of text messages and Snapchat data. And by allowing joint experts or joint data extraction at the same time, it's going to help the family feel comfortable knowing that all data is being looked at, is not being piecemeal. Because oftentimes I've seen cases where there's been a cell phone data that's been extracted and the state says, oh, well, that's other information deleted, we can't get it. But that's not normal. When a forensic expert can see what's been deleted, what's been altered in the data.
Now, I would say, obviously, the biggest discrepancy, the biggest question we have right now, the biggest mystery, how did Nolan die? What was the cause of death? Look, at this time, the results of the state's official autopsy, meaning the one from the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Lab, have not been released. Seemingly, there are pending toxicology findings that they need to get a hold of. We also do not have the results of the independent autopsy that has been ordered by Nolan's family through Ben Crump, where Nolan's body was apparently taken to Washington, D.C. Ben Crump said the delay was due to canceled flights. Now, in an episode where we're talking about contradictions, if these two autopsies do not match up, if the results are inconsistent, that's going to be an issue. Ben Crump told Don Lemon that the independent autopsy will find out, quote, if he had any physical injuries to his body beyond drowning. Here's how retired detective Matt Irvine thinks about it.
It's not unusual to have more than one autopsy in a case, and it's not unusual for medical professionals to disagree, any more than it'd be unusual for scientists or other eminent professionals to disagree about how to interpret facts in a case. The autopsy itself, at least the preliminary autopsy, both the official one and the private one commissioned by the family, should be complete or close to complete now or very soon. But there's additional steps like looking at toxicology, for example, that may take, again, additional weeks. So that's going to take a while. I think that probably additional potential witnesses may be identified besides the group of friends that went to the island with Mr. Wells. Those interviews may take additional days and weeks. They're probably going to be re-interviews as they gain information from one person that requires them to go back and clarify or confirm information with somebody they've already talked to. So I think we're probably talking about a matter of weeks, both for the Jackson County Sheriff's investigation and hopefully for the independent investigation sought by the family and by Mr. Crump. So I'm hoping it's not going to be too much longer than that. The tough thing about a case like this is sometimes even after all the information is in, you don't have a clear answer. I mean, for example, if the determination is that he drowned, well, that's a cause of death. It's not a manner of death, right? You could drown accidentally. You could drown by suicide. You could drown by homicide. So we might, at the end of the day, have all the facts in and still not have an answer that satisfies the grieving family or other people that are concerned about what happened.
Because the forensic evidence wouldn't be so clear to suggest how someone drowned, right? I mean, how could you show, unless there was some sort of blunt force trauma or some sort of evidence of, he was held down or pushed in the water or something like that, it'd be really hard to know.
Exactly. And even if there are some injuries to his body, depending on the injuries, they could be something caused by another person or caused by a body being in a rough current.
There's not even an official conclusion or consensus on when or where Nolan died. Did he die on land? Did he die in the water? Did he die in a boat? His body was found on July 6th in the water by the island. And there are questions that remain about why he wasn't found earlier. Ben Crump said in an earlier press conference, quote, he went missing on July 4th, and they say his body should have been there on July 5th. Why would it not appear until July 6th? That's one of those things that's just not adding up. Now, I asked Brian Trasher from the United Cajun Navy about this. He was part of the search efforts for Nolan. He was there when Nolan's body was found. He was up in the air. Now, keep in mind, this was early on because Nolan's body wasn't even officially ID'd yet, but take a look at what he said in this earlier interview. Just to clarify something, why wasn't the body spotted earlier?
I think that I can tell you that I've started flying over the island, that part of the island where the body washed up, approximately 6:30 a.m. And I believe he was spotted by a park ranger at 8:45. My belief is that he just washed up within that time period because we were flying kind of a long grid north and south. And I think he just washed up and park ranger just doing his normal runs in the morning, but also too, given the situation, I'm sure they were a little more hyper aware and probably a little more head on a swivel on the island, knowing what happened and what was going on. But yeah, I was told that it was about 8:45 when the ranger spotted, called it in, because I did see a long line of emergency boats coming in to coming north. Heading southwest toward the northwest tip of the island. My opinion is that when he went into the water, however he got into the water, he didn't go that far out before he drowned because it only took like a couple of days for him to drift right back south to the tip of the island, same tip of the island where he was last seen. Had he gone a lot further out, he probably would have gotten sucked into the channel and pushed way further south toward the Chandelier Islands.
And I mean, another source of discrepancy, or perhaps why the family is working with an independent team and investigators conducting an independent investigation, is that authorities with the Jackson County Sheriff's Department and other agencies have initially said they don't suspect foul play. There's a question, is it too early to say that? Why did they say that? Look, the sheriff seemed to indicate that Wells' body did not have homicidal trauma, that it seems like drowning. But he also said that even without the autopsy coming out. And the coroner indicated that he's not going to speculate yet. By the way, this is according to People magazine and ABC 7 reporting. Interestingly, WLBT3 reported that Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves has joined the conversation, commenting on this case for the first time, saying, "What I will simply say is I don't know all of the details. I don't know all of the facts surrounding the case. I have yet to see a fact or a piece of evidence that suggests any foul play. But if there is, I feel confident that the sheriff's office, the district attorney's office, the members at the Department of Public Safety that deal with these crimes, if there had been one, they will find it and they will do what is necessary." But look, talk about discrepancies. The family has concerns that something else might be going on here, raising questions about when he was found, why he went off on his own, no phone, but also how could no one see him? If it's a packed island, if he was drowning, no one saw him, no one came to help. And also they highlight he was athletic. He was in, quote, tip-top shape, that he knew how to swim. And you also have multiple things happening here. So not only the family seeking answers and the investigation moving forward, but this is concerning too. TMZ reports that the FBI office in Jackson announced that it is reviewing threats related to the Nolan Wells investigation. They don't specify what kind of threats, who was getting them, who they were directed at, but the FBI indicated, quote, these efforts are in parallel with Jackson County's independent investigation. According to WLOX, Sheriff John Ledbetter of Jackson County, indicated that the FBI is helping examine digital evidence in this case too. And just to add to this potential discrepancy over whether foul play is involved or not, and who could allegedly be involved or not, according to ABC News, Mr. Shepherd said that investigators have spoken to him and his friends, and he emphasized that they have a diverse friend group. He indicated that he and his friend group have been receiving death threats since Nolan was found, that he wanted to speak out to clear up any misinformation, stating that neither he nor his friend group had anything to do with Nolan's death, that he rejects the idea of race being a part of this, considering the idea that Nolan Wells is black, appears that he was around all white people. And quote, they're trying to spin a narrative that's not there. He's wrong. I understand Nolan's parents are grieving, and I really think he's taken a little bit of advantage of that, and I don't like that. I really don't, because they're vulnerable. And Shepherd asked for everybody just to relax and let everybody mourn the loss of Nolan, and let us remember him as the sweet guy he was and not something we're scared of because of the trauma we've had. If Ben Crump is doing his own investigation, let him do it. And then let the sheriff's office conclude their investigation and figure out the facts on their end. Let us all just know the truth instead of jumping to two conclusions about things. We did no wrong here, and we don't understand how we're getting so much hate behind us. We all cared and loved Nolan, and nobody wanted to see Nolan die. Nobody wanted to see his life be taken so short. I just know I lost my best friend. Wells was just somebody that you automatically just felt so comfortable to talk to. Nobody would ever hurt Nolan in our friend group. We would die for him. We would do everything in our power for that guy. If he needed anything, we would do it. Nolan brought us all together. And look, we now know one of the potential next steps, that this case could potentially be presented to a grand jury. Ben Crump announced that during a press conference, that the family had met with Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McGrath And the key takeaway from that meeting was that the DA said, according to him, that they would turn the case over to a grand jury for potential filing of charges or indictment once the sheriff's office finishes its investigation. To be clear, though, that's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that it'll be presented to a grand jury. It's not a guarantee that a grand jury would return an indictment. And by the way, we're not even saying that would be a homicide charge. Someone could potentially be charged with a crime that's unrelated specifically to Nolan's death. Tampering with evidence, lying to police. I'm not saying that that happened, but I'm just giving you something to consider as we talk about the possibility of a grand jury. Going back to Sheriff John Ledbetter, he told ABC, I think it's important we don't put ourselves on a timetable, that we don't rush ourselves, but I do think it's important to be diligent in gathering all the facts. That's what the family deserves. He's right. That is what the family deserves. But look, we don't know what happened to Nolan. We don't know what he did after 3 p.m. We don't know if he died in the water, on land, or on a boat. We don't know if anybody had a role or there's criminal culpability here. We don't know if his phone was tampered with. We don't know who's telling the truth or not. But what I do know is we're going to stay on top of this and see how this progresses. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody.